In the meantime, we're joined by Rick Wilford from Queen's University Politics Department. Rick, good afternoon to you.
Hello, Noel.
This is, for some people, a big day, for some people, a disastrous day. Where do you think it fits into the Northern Ireland story?
I suppose it's putting some icing on the cake, you know, given America's involvement in Northern Ireland, the peace process and so on. I think a lot of people perhaps forget that Bush was on the watch when we had the virtual election back in 2003. Mark already, I think, this afternoon has mentioned the role of Mitchell Rees in particular in relation to policing, and then of course George Bush was in the White House when we had the St Andrews Agreement, so it wasn't as if he was just coming in on the coattails of Clinton. I think although he himself hasn't had this very close hands-on relationship with the politicians, I think his administration has, and I think he's kept the momentum going. You know, like him or loathe him, most people seem to loathe him, but he has had, he's helped to steer us to where we are today, for good or ill.
The tougher line, of course, was dictated very much by the events of 9/11. I mean, yeah. I hope this isn't a stupid question, but if that hadn't happened, I mean, would Ireland have dropped very much off the radar altogether of the White House, do you think?
Well, it's difficult to say. I think one thing that wouldn't have happened quite so quickly, I suspect, is that we wouldn't have had the first act of decommissioning.
Rick, I'm going to interrupt you because we can go to the castle and there is the President.
That is being made toward peace and reconciliation. As a matter of fact, the world is impressed by the progress being made toward peace and reconciliation. And that obviously takes a commitment by leadership. And I want to thank you all for giving me time to hear your thoughts and to visit with you. We talked about a lot of issues. We talked about the devolution of police and justice. We talked about the successful investment conference that took place here. And I want to thank my fellow citizens for coming, and I want to thank those from around the world who are paying attention to Northern Ireland. The truth of the matter is this is, you know, people who've come here and looked at the government, looked at the situation, and gotten to know the people, realize this is a good place to invest. And ultimately, investment is going to help Northern Ireland realize its full potential. And then finally, I was able to thank the leaders for their work in helping others reconcile their differences. The interesting thing about the progress being made here in Northern Ireland is that it's attracted the attention of societies around the world that wonder whether reconciliation is possible for them. And Martin was telling me about his talks with some of the Iraqi leaders, about his sharing his stories about how folks can reconcile. Northern Ireland is a success story. Obviously, there's more work to be done, but the progress made to date has been unimaginable, 10 years ago. And I want to congratulate you. Thank you for serving your communities, and I wish you all the very best as you continue your journey.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I say that I'm delighted that President Bush, of his own choice, has recognized that Belfast is one of the major cities of Europe and has included it in this tour. It is a personal commitment that the President has shown towards Northern Ireland, and we are really grateful, not just for him coming today, but for the work that has been done by the President and his ambassadors over the previous years, and particularly the work that has been done most recently for the investment conference. The endorsement of the President for our investment conference goes a long way, and it lets people throughout the world know that Northern Ireland truly is open for business.
Can I say that, just to echo what Peter has said, that this is an opportunity for us to express our thanks and appreciation for the tremendous work that has been done in terms of the United States of America and what is now undoubtedly one of the most successful peace processes in the world today, beginning with the work of President Clinton, the contribution of Senator George Mitchell, the envoys that were sent by President Bush, such as Richard Haas and Mitchell Rees and now Paula Dobriansky, all of whom have played a very important role in contributing to our process, which I do believe is, as the President has identified, a role model for how other conflicts can be resolved in other parts of the world. And already we're having a tremendous amount of interest in our work. We've had 2 delegations of Iraqi parliamentarians to Parliament buildings here in Belfast, just a few yards up the road. And there is no doubt whatsoever that other places that have suffered from conflict are anxious to learn from our experiences We don't believe that we have got all of the answers, but what we can certainly do is outlay our experiences for others to consider. We also are very appreciative of the weight of support that has been put behind the Economic Investment Conference by the President and by Paula Dobriansky as his ambassador. And we're very hopeful in the time ahead. In fact, I think we're confident that jobs, much needed jobs, will flow from that. And I think providing good jobs, a decent standard of living, facing up to the economic difficulties that our people have to endure, is a very important part of the workload which Peter and I, as First and Deputy First Minister, need to take forward in the time ahead.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
So after something like 20 minutes of talks inside, there's another pat on the back for the Deputy First Minister and the First Minister. President Bush said the world was impressed with what had happened in Northern Ireland. He thanked them for their commitment. He thanked the leaders for their commitment in showing others how to reconcile. He said they talked about the devolution of policing and justice, about the economic conference, and the message going out that Belfast, that Northern Ireland is a good place to invest. There we go. Now, Mark Devenport still with me, and Rick Wilford. Mark, just very quickly, a body language word between Peter Robinson and Martin McGuinness. Pretty important occasion for them.
Yeah, I mean, they had to make sure that they sort of, as it were, sang off the same hymn sheet, which they managed to do so. I thought just at the last bit there, the President likes to keep things brief and short, and you kind of almost half sensed that he was saying to Martin McGuinness, come on, let's get on with the next bit in the itinerary, because I don't think that's the only meeting. I think that's the first meeting. I suspect, if they're keeping to the timetable that I was given, that what will now happen is that Gordon Brown and Brian Campbell come up to join them, and they'll have a sort of wider meeting about investment.
Yes.
That would appear to be logical anyway, given that Gordon Brown and Brian Campbell didn't appear there. But beyond that, no, I mean, it was interesting that he did specifically say that he had mentioned the devolution of policing and justice. You know, there were contrary indications there because it is a bit of a thorny issue, but whether that was merely just a general expression that it will be nice to complete devolution. And a big play made both by the President and indeed Martin McGuinness of this whole business of Northern Ireland as a kind of role model for conflict resolution, which I suppose, if a visit like this prompts other people to come and study Northern Ireland and just whips up general interest in the place, then it's no bad thing.
We can't say for sure, but I don't get the impression that the Deputy First Minister gave the President a flea in his ear over Iraq.
Yes, it would amazed me actually if he had started off with kind of handing over a petition saying get out of Iraq. I suppose the fact that now he has had these discussions with Iraqi groups means that he can quite truthfully say, I raised US foreign policy, I talked about Iraq, I put forward my point of view without necessarily having to dress up in a Ku Klux Klan outfit and tell him to get out of the country to make that point.